Alrighty, it is week 9, and we are continuing objects projects. Actually, that kind of foreshadows what we're going to do this week because I do want you to get some coding experience. And I think week 10 is going to be all coding projects. And I know when you are required to code on your own, it can be a bit intimidating. I'm looking for my hand mirror, my little video player, the video of me. I know it can be a little intimidating, and I will just tell you, writing code on your own, and it doesn't have to be without help, of course. That's why we have wonderful tutors, which, by the way, you should take advantage of. Okay, in a good way. I put in week 7. I'm actually finally getting ahead a little bit. I'm in week 9. You're actually in the RL, in the real world, in week 7. I posted into there um, Dustin's and Zach's hours. So reach out to them, reach out to me. I mean, you have 3 really good resources, right? So, and I've already seen a handful of you, which is wonderful. Okay, so in week 9, we're gonna do one more section on just talking about objects because this conversation has just started. And then I'm gonna have you refactor the mileage program for building, and it's kind of I hate to use these words, but it's true. It's a little bit of an academic exercise. It's not a real world exercise, but it's a way to help you get your hands into objects in a more real way. And then we're going to switch and do another refactor, but I will talk to you about an array of objects. I actually should do that right now. I might do that. Actually, I might have 2 videos and then we'll have those. All right, let's get started. I found a funny meme about objects in JavaScript. In JavaScript, everything is an object. And sometimes it feels like that. Okay, so we're going to continue to work in 17 starting objects. And the first thing I want to talk about is primitives and objects. Because you can call methods, and let's just look at different methods. Like if I looked at string, which is a primitive, string has all these different methods on them. And when you call methods, these methods on a string, also on a number, also the other primitives, it actually will convert that string, not the actual value, but the string into an object so that it can run. I think that's what it is most of the time. It might not be all the time, but I'm going to show you just one simple example. So as an example, we have setting in either the mobile, right, or the name, we have string values. So what we could do here, and by the way, I do have live server running. This is the code as I left it in week 8. So what I could do is I should say console log. What I could do is reach into my object. Now, this you don't have to use the object structure to do what I'm about to do. I'm just using it as more experience. So I could just have a global string declaration initialization assignment, but I don't. And I'm just giving you this, right? So if I did that and I said, okay, give me the first, what do you think? Because that is, what is that? That syntax is for array, but name in this case is a string. What's your guess on what it's going to return? All right, let's clear this, run this. It's going to return I. Why? Because what happens is when you do this reference, I'm not even calling a method right now. Okay, I'm just saying now JavaScript, look at that string value, and because I'm giving you a array reference, it's going to convert that string into an array and give me that. But what do we know about arrays? Arrays are just objects. Okay. So I just want you to start to understand that and look through this list. Like, look through this list. You don't have to know all of them, right? There's just so many, like index of, that's a fun one. All right. So you can actually have a string, you can have a search term, and then you can search the string for the search term, right? Give me the index of, and it'll tell you where that is located inside of that. Let's see, is that right? Method given one argument, a substring to search for. Yeah. Okay. So it is good to play around with some of these because trust me, right? You will definitely see these in the future. Oh, that's the one I was looking at actually. This is the one where you can give it the index. It's kind of like a little more involved version of what I just did, but it's still the same idea. So again, the meme, right? That everything is an object. Ultimately, now again, it doesn't convert it. And this is actually the next thing I want to talk about. So first, just know that, look through and length was the other one I wanted to look at. So I could call an actual method on the string. And in that case, I bet given what we just talked about, you know what it is, right? I could also do the same thing, right? Inside the mobile, right? Mobile. And I could say inside the mobile, give me the make, right? So in that case, 7. That's how long, okay? Indexed, right? So that's how, is that right? Yeah, make. I had to count it to make sure. Okay, so that's fun. And then numbers, similar thing. Well, there are a lot of methods, right? So is integer is not a number. We've seen parse int already, toFix, and a very common one people use is toString. And I've noticed many people do not understand what toString actually does. It's going to return a string representation of a value. And that's okay. That's okay because this is part of, and also toFixed, right? So toFixed return, toFixed formats a number using fixed notation. So if I say, I have a number like this, toFixed, I can parse float, which we didn't even look at, and then I can call toFixed on that. But value of, let's see, what is value of? So just look through these. Here's what my suggestion is, look through these methods because the more you kind of like when you're trying to code, which I'm going to have you do in week 10 on your own with help if you need it, having at least an idea, because first you're going to come up with a concept based on what we've learned and you're going to code something, and at least having spent some time looking at some of the different JavaScript commands, methods you have access to will be really helpful. Okay, so anyway, in this example, right, I've just given you play around a little bit, right? So and in this case, I'm not going to make you create another file. Just give me a comment in here, right? Comment where you played around with these methods. Now, again, they could be string, it could be number, whatever, because you will have at this point, right, created your own object. Okay, so let's talk about looping over objects because that's also a thing we need to be able to do, and it actually points out something I didn't talk about with the introduction last week. So I'm not going to do a function. I'm just going to do a for. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to iterate over the array, over the object, through the object, I would actually say, and I'm going to look at the keys and in this case, in like my object. Okay. Now, so what do we know about a loop, right? It's going to go through each one, and for each one, there's going to be a key. So if we just first did console.log key, right, that would give us the keys: name, age, hobbies, mobile, greeting. Okay, which is awesome. But what if we wanted the values as well? This is where, because we're using code to reach into the object, we can't really just say, I believe, name undefined. You might think but actually, or we can't really say, let's see, let me see if I'm wrong about this, value. No, you can't, right? Undefined. So what you have to do here, and I'm going to convert this into a template string just so I can have them all in the same line. I'm going to go ahead and have this because this is a variable, right? And by the way, from here on out, you really should be using template strings. They're just better formatted, okay? Key and value, and actually just make this a little more clear, right? Say key text. And now to get the value, here's what you have to do. Now there's various ways to do this, and there are times when you would do this anyway, but I would do key bracket notation. So here's the thing. Bracket notation in objects is not array. It's one of the things people go, "What? What?" Okay? And then in here, okay, I would do key. Oh, no, it's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Actually, I do. I think it's Oh, no, sorry. Actually, it's my object. And then I do key. Let's see if I got that right. I did. Okay. Whew. I love it when I get to code. By the way, the more you code, the better it gets. So here's what we see is that we use this bracket notation when we're programmatically, if a word, uh, doing something in that we want to reach into that object. So if you ever get an error when you're trying to just do the dot notation, just try the bracket notation. That's kind of how I remember it. It's like if I'm doing something and I think that should work, and it's not one of the first things I'll try if I'm working with an object, is to actually change it to the bracket notation. Okay. Okay, so last topic here, and this is an important one, is pass by value or pass by reference. And so when you're passing things around, okay, or when you're also copying, creating new, like if I created a new string, right? That string, let me just show you. I think it's better to show you. Okay, so down here in the bottom, so I have an object called my object, right? If I said Rio's object equal to my object, you would think I've created a new object, right? Wouldn't that be what you would think there? Logically, it's like, no, I'm taking that existing object and I'm creating, right, assigning it here. But it's not true. And in order to see this, let me prove it to you. Because until somebody tells me, so let's say I add likes, okay, likes, and I started at 0, right? So this is just, again, just playing around with the object. And in this case, if I call, right, if I call Rio's object, oh, actually, sorry, let me also create another method here. Let's say increase likes, right? I'm not going to use the this, right? So I could just write it, but okay, I'm just telling you, right? Think about that. So in this case, oh no, actually I am. I am going to use this because I'm going to say this dot likes plus equal, right? 1. So when I run this method, this function, this value increases by 1. Okay. So let's first, and actually let me kind of move this code around a little bit because we're not doing anything to it below. I'm just going to move it here and kind of get rid of that. Okay. So now I'm going to call increase likes, and I don't need to pass anything into it, right? And when I do that, console log, which by the way, I should really just use the dev tools here. Okay. Right. Okay, let's actually do this to use the dev tools. Right here, before I call the method on the object, right? What's in, right? We see that Rio's object is that it's the same. And we could actually go in and ask, are they strictly equal? And they're going to be, okay? So now when we call this function method, right? This dot likes is 0. Okay, so now this dot likes is 1. Okay. And now if we console log or we look at it, we see this dot likes is 1. But guess what? My object dot likes is also 1. And that's because when you're using objects, when you're using arrays, they are not primitives, they are data types, and therefore they have a reference. They do not, and there are ways. I'm just going to tell you there are ways. Now I could show you a quick one, but it's not the best. But I will show you. We will talk about how to, and this is a term. If you get more into programming, you'll hear is that when we instantiate objects, right? We could also do what's called deep copying. Although instantiating objects still has a link to its prototype, and this is in here, but prototype is just basically how we look at where that item was created from. Was it created from a template, or a template being a class or a functor function constructor? And if you don't know what those terms are, don't worry about it. We will go over them. But does that surprise you, right? It probably should. Okay. So just to prove this out, right? So what do we know? Objects and arrays are passed by reference. Okay. And now let's say we said that actually, we can do the same thing. Okay. Dot age equals, give myself, I'll be 60 this year. Okay. So if I do it in here, right, let's let this run. We're going to run it again. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So now we do this. We let that run. We increase that. We've already seen that. Cool. Now what happens here? Right? Now what's your guess? Here. That's right. Oh, that's right. Okay. Because what's happening is we're passing it into a value, even though the value is passed by its value, the value in this case is inside of the object. Did that surprise you? Right? Because what I was saying is that primitives are passed by value. Well, it depends on where we're passing those values into, right? It really does depend on that. So if I just had a simple function and I was updating a value, it's not going to update the value. Matter of fact, here's one of the things I want you to do right now. I want you to write some code that shows how values, right? Because objects and arrays are passed by value, but primitives are, sorry, object and arrays are passed by reference. Values, right, are passed by their value itself. So you could look back, you could write a simple function, pass a string or a number into it, and tell me, does that value out on the global global space change? So just write some code showing that. Okay. All right, so you have a couple of assignments here I've given you in this code. We also coded along. All right, so let's actually talk about this. We did loops, right? Yeah, so plus equals, it's kind of a funny one, right? So take what we've already learned and add more content to it. Okay, so that will be your first one. Just do your commits and then we'll continue on.